So they say you're staying at the staying school?
A group of rogue agents, primarily recruited from Estonian intelligence, have been working in the shadows to build up nearly unmatched destructive capability. Their targets and motivations are unknown, but they have recently acquired a large quantity of weapons-grade plutonium on the black market. We have been planning
Operation Sandbag,
where we will swap the plutonium with an inert decoy, but they were one step ahead of us. New intel suggests that a new member, Ilmar Pol, stole highly sensitive nuclear monitoring equipment from his former department in Estonia. They will know whether or not there is weapons-grade plutonium in that room. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to produce a small amount of weapons-grade plutonium, which we can place into our decoy to trick their sensors. This small quantity hidden outside the shielding will look identical to a large quantity inside. As a fellow physicist, I trust you know that there is no way out of this. You have
67
days to deliver the plutonium in Montreal. Should you be caught or killed, the division will deny any involvement in your operations. After your recent change of heart, you should know that you have rather few allies over here. You have plenty of non-allies watching over you though, so try not to break any laws. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck.
little ghosts.
So plutonium doesn't exist naturally. It's typically made with some kind of neutron source and then uranium. Like natural uranium consists of about 2 main isotopes. There's U-238, and then you have a tiny little bit of uranium-235. And normally the U-235 is what's actually useful, because that's the bit that can actually fission. Uranium-238, if it's hit with a neutron, it has a small probability to capture that neutron and become uranium-239. And this is a kind of goofy nucleus that has way more neutrons than it should, so it decays radioactively quite quickly. And it resolves the sort of imbalance of having too many neutrons by turning a neutron into a proton, and then doing it again. And so it steps sort of down the periodic table, and so it goes from uranium-239 to neptunium-239 to plutonium-239, which is what we want. Weapons-grade plutonium is just plutonium-239. So fundamentally, all we have to do is get some depleted uranium, which is what you call it when it's mostly uranium-238, and just blast it with neutrons. Poisson, hey, is there anything you can tell me about neutron sources?
You're 1 train and 1 tram away from a giant one.
Like here?
No, the ESS. It's a massive particle accelerator across the border over in Sweden.
Wait, I can get there by tram? So welcome to Lund and to the European Spallation Source. It's still under construction actually, but it's a massive facility. There's 3 experimental halls that are designed to receive an absurdly powerful beam of neutrons. And the neutrons are made from the world's most energetic proton beam, which is from a massive linear accelerator underground that runs at 2 megawatts. And the protons will slam into a massive 11-ton spinning disk. It's about 3 meters in diameter, made of tungsten bricks. And this will cause a process called spallation, where the impact of these high-energy protons will basically blow chunks off of the tungsten nuclei. It's not a fission process. We're not splitting the nuclei using neutrons or something. We're just taking charged protons and blasting them into the nuclei, and it's just spalling off little bits, some of which are neutrons, which we can then capture. And at this scale, accelerating protons is not that difficult to do. And so if you just build a really, really big proton accelerator, the ESS can create a far more powerful beam of neutrons than you could with an ordinary nuclear reactor, because nuclear reactors are sort of the most common neutron source. But then the ESS needs to slow down its neutrons. It does this using cryogenic parahydrogen beryllium mirrors. I also have to slow down my neutrons. I will be doing this by just dumping water into my setup. So most processes that we use to create neutrons will produce high energy, or what are called fast neutrons. And these will just kind of go through almost anything without interacting through it, just like a bullet. And the ESS is going to use neutron beams to probe new materials or biological samples. And so we need the neutron beam to actually interact with them. We need a low energy neutron beam. And if we allow these fast neutrons to bounce off of protons or neutrons that are at a certain temperature, the neutrons will basically transfer away energy, and slowly over time, they'll reach an equilibrium where the neutrons that we've inputted in are at about the same temperature as everything else. And the sort of energy equivalent for neutrons at room temperature is about 25 thousandths of an electron volt, which is a tiny, tiny amount of energy. But how do we actually bring neutrons towards this very low energy equilibrium? Well, we just need to have them bounce off of a bunch of things that are either protons, neutrons, or about close to it in mass. Water has a lot of hydrogen. Hydrogen atoms are just protons with an electron that we don't care about. So if we pass these high-energy fast neutrons through water, on average, they're going to bump into lower-energy protons, and they'll transfer a lot of their energy away. And slowly, after a lot of bounces, they'll reach this equilibrium. They'll approach this equilibrium where they're thermal neutrons. So thermal neutrons at room temperature are going to be about 25 thousandths of an electron volt of energy. And substances that do this, that allow us to take fast neutrons and slow them down, are called neutron moderators. So water's a good example of this. The gist of this is that if we take our neutron source and our uranium target and we surround it with a moderator like water, we can really improve the efficiency per neutron of the setup, rather than having a neutron just go in a straight line from our neutron source and get lucky and interact with the uranium target. It has a chance to sort of bounce around, and could pass through it multiple times. Maybe some neutrons get emitted in the wrong direction, but then they get bounced in the right direction. And so it just makes it much more likely to occur. And the capturing process is also the likelihood of it being captured is also energy dependent. And that's a complicated thing that I don't want to get into right now with resonance peaks and a lot of math, but the gist of it is that moderator will make it much more efficient. So plutonium was first synthesized at the end of 1940 at the Berkeley Radiation Lab using, that's right, a massive particle accelerator. They actually used deuterons instead of neutrons, and that made plutonium-238, which isn't the weapons-grade isotope, and so we don't really care about it. But a year earlier, there was a letter that was penned by Leo Szilard, signed by Albert Einstein, and delivered to FDR, the President of the United States at the time. And it told the president of the potential of a nuclear weapon, and also advised the US to build one, and not just build one, but do it completely in secret. And a bunch of highly regarded physicists have been consulted on this, and there was really only one who was staunchly opposed to a part of it, and that was Niels Bohr, and he really didn't like secrecy, and he saw the path of secrecy as this horrible one-way route where science under secrecy would only allow science to be used for violence and oppression, and not exploration and serving the good of humanity. And he also argued that enriching the amount of uranium-235 would just be impossible without, his words were, turning the United States into one huge factory. And so next April, a few months after the first plutonium atoms were brought into the world knowingly, Nazi Germany invaded Denmark. Bohr borrowed the Nobel Prize that belonged to Max von Laue and James Franck, and he dissolved the gold Nobel Prize in acid and aqua regia in order to hide it at his institute in Copenhagen, which is what's behind me. He made contact with the Swedish Prime Minister to try to bring as many people across the border to Sweden as possible. And it depends on which historian you trust, but he either saved the lives of his family and a few others, or the lives of several thousand Jews. And from Sweden, he eventually boarded a plane to England, which would fly him at high altitude over Nazi-occupied Norway. And it was somewhere above here in Norwegian airspace that Bohr decided not to wear his helmet, and so he didn't hear the pilot's instructions through the helmet to don his oxygen mask. And they climbed higher and higher to avoid the Nazis. They wanted to fly as high as possible. And as the altitude went up, the oxygen pressure went down, and Bohr eventually passed out. But he survived, and from the UK, he made it to the US, where he worked with the scientists of the Manhattan Project. He wasn't really working on the Manhattan Project much. He didn't want to contribute to their efforts, but he did talk with them frequently and talk with them about nuclear physics problems. And there is really one idea that he's broadly credited for on the Manhattan Project. To detonate a fission bomb, you have to basically just rearrange a massive fissile material such that on average one neutron will generate more than one neutron, and you have this chain reaction, it grows and grows, and eventually a city no longer exists. The two main ways to do that are by bringing two pieces of fissile material together, which is what we call a gun-type weapon, or by compressing a piece of fissile material with explosive, which is an implosion-type weapon, and that's much more efficient. But regardless, the instant that you do this, as soon as you reach the sort of domain of supercriticality, you need the bomb to explode right now, otherwise you'll have a partial detonation. And it's very unlikely that there's going to be a neutron to trigger this chain reaction, to kickstart the reaction at the exact right time. So almost every nuclear fission bomb will have some kind of neutron source that's just continuously emitting neutrons to kickstart the chain reaction as soon as it needs to go off. And how to do this was Bohr's main contribution. He proposed using polonium-210, which is a strong emitter of alpha particles. Alpha particles are just nucleus of helium atom, 2 protons, 2 neutrons. And he would combine polonium-210 with this horribly toxic metal, which is beryllium. Beryllium is very efficient at absorbing alpha particles and emitting neutrons. It's not the only thing that can do that. This is actually the same reaction I did with boron in order to turn pesticides into antimatter a while back. But beryllium turns out to be way more efficient at this because a beryllium nucleus isn't really one contiguous nucleus. It's more like a sort of system of 2 alpha particles and a neutron. And so you can kind of just, there's the much higher probability that it will sort of just Indiana Jones swap out one of those alpha particles with a neutron, and so you have alpha particle and neutron out. The nuclear structure basically just makes it quite a bit more likely for this to happen with beryllium than anything else. And so these polonium-beryllium sources were what were used in a lot of nuclear weapons. And beryllium is extremely toxic, and it's kind of a strange form of toxicity too. So beryllium compounds, beryllium dust, anything that can get into your lungs is extremely dangerous, incurable lung disease, but only in a small number of people. So technically it's a contact allergen, but not really, because that's only for a certain threshold of exposure. It's complicated. But the important part is that don't ever do anything with beryllium. Beryllium is horrible. A chunk of beryllium that is just sitting somewhere, either as, beryllium windows are used for X-ray equipment and stuff. As long as it's just sitting there, it's not being ground or filed down, it's not being processed, nothing is creating dust, that isn't especially hazardous. So in order to do this, I have to handle the beryllium extremely carefully, never put it on something it could react with, never have it on any kind of hard metal surface that it could scrape on. That would have big potential for creating dust. But I think it's possible to handle it about as safely as I can reasonably do it. Never ever do this. As for polonium-210, there's one company outside of Chicago that sells little cartridges that have polonium-210 for anti-static purposes, because the radiation ionizes the air and gets rid of static. They're really expensive, like a few $100 US for a strong one, but I mean, it's really the only option I know of for getting a strong alpha source as like an ordinary person and at an ordinary-ish budget. I mean, these are like going to be 500 times more powerful than your smoke detector at the one that I would probably get. But I mean, I guess this means we go to Chicago. Alright, I got the alpha sources, but I had to stop here at the University of Chicago, because this is the site where the first nuclear reactor was built, underneath what was then Stagg Field. And this over here is the building that housed the Met Lab, or the Metallurgical Lab. And metallurgy was kind of just a cover story. This was the secret lab that conducted a lot of the chemistry work necessary for the US to build the bomb. And it was here that plutonium was first fully isolated, and someone got to see this new element with their own eyes. At one point, there was a beaker containing plutonium species they were studying that fell over overnight and spilled onto a piece of newspaper. And the scientists woke up, entered the lab, to find that a significant amount of the world's plutonium was in the form of a wet newspaper. But they dissolved the newspaper in acid, extracted the plutonium from the solution, and they were able to continue on with their work. They did actually do some metallurgy, though, and they found that plutonium as a metal is an extremely alien metal. It will constantly change form between hard and soft as you work with it, and it glows with the heat that it produces from its own radiation. It had only been a couple of years since plutonium was this frontier of science that was just being explored to see if we could push the limit, go beyond the naturally occurring elements. And now it was all research conducted in a secret lab with the hallways patrolled by guard dogs, all as they were trying to build the bomb. Alright, so I'm in Hudson, New York on my way to Montreal. It's mostly ready, but not completely. There's a bunch of electronics for the radiation detector that you can see on the top, including a very sketchy high-voltage source I got off eBay that I've already shocked myself on. And buried in this mess of yellow duct tape is the detector head, the polonium, beryllium, neutron source, and 2 sealed containers, which contain uranium-238 that I bought. And so this is going to get lowered into a container that will be filled with water, and then around it will be the lead shielding. I bought a bunch of fishing weights made of lead balls so that I can make lead shielding out of that. I still have to cut them open and take out the lead, and I don't know when I'm going to do that. The detector isn't really working reliably, but I'm getting some data, so I guess, debugging time. And the detector is really the hardest part. And what the detector is going to do, I guess I should say, is measure gamma radiation. So when uranium-239 decays into neptunium-239, and when neptunium-239 decays into plutonium-239, these decays emit gamma radiation at specific energies that I can detect. Oh, and I need some kind of top cover for this. Like, I just need a piece of sheet metal, but I have 2 days, so I can't just order one off Beatmaster. Like, where am I going to get a piece of sheet metal? Okay, so I've been reading the analog signal from the amplifier using this headphone jack adapter that I got from Walmart, which is turning out to not have been the best idea. Who would have guessed? It has some kind of, like, automatic gain compensation, so it'll rescale the signal and just screw everything up, but now that I know that's the problem, I think it'll be okay. I'm not actually as stressed about this as I maybe should be, but, you know, we'll try it. Right before I should get into Montreal at a good time, I'll have, half an hour or something to go put together the shielding, and then that'll be that. I can leave it to run. So it turns out you can find a piece of sheet metal at a random train station in Albany. Look, there's even a Montreal Canadiens one. So I should probably also address the legal side of things while I'm here. And no, I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. Don't listen to any of this. But first of all, in almost all jurisdictions, including the US and Canada, making or owning a single atom of plutonium is a massive crime. It's strategic nuclear material. That's a ridiculous law. Technically, your smoke detector can form a single atom of plutonium. Like, it's crazy, but it's what it is. In the US, it's pretty much ironclad. So I researched Canadian nuclear law for like a month, and it turns out that smoke detectors have about the right set of exemptions, and so technically this device is a smoke detector. If smoke is present, it'll block the alpha particles from the polonium, and so no alpha particles, no neutrons, no plutonium, and so technically this is a smoke detector. For legal purposes, this is a smoke detector. It's just a really bad smoke detector that you can't transport out of Canada legally, that can't cross any international borders, and that takes about 3 days to tell you if there's smoke or not. The law has a bunch of other requirements about radioactive sources not leaking and stuff, and you have to be able to prove that it's leak-proof in a fire, and I can't guarantee that, but there's an exception for smoke detectors that contain krypton-85, which is like a gaseous isotope. And so I just bought some random old vacuum tube that has krypton-85 on it. It just sits there. It serves no function whatsoever, and it just makes the thing more dangerous because now there's a glass tube I have to not break. But I have to have it for it to not be a crime. I mean, it's amazing. Oh, and it's not generating any plutonium right now. So I've disabled it by putting an old ticket from the Berlin U-Bahn in between the polonium and the beryllium. So it blocks alpha particles, they won't hit the beryllium, and we won't get any neutrons. So yeah, just to be clear, right now, an old Berlin subway ticket is the only thing stopping me from illegally manufacturing strategic nuclear material. So I made it to Montreal and immediately had to try to find a place to fill up the shielding area with the lead shot. I needed like a large ventilated area, and I couldn't really find anything. I could do it in the train station, but there was a bunch of security. Shielding is ready. So I ended up doing it in the bathroom stall of like the main train station. Okay, it's time. So first we're gonna remove this. As soon as we do
Where's the other peak? Okay, there we go. It's coming. It's coming. So we're gonna leave this running overnight. Okay, so this is going. All of the wired connections should be fixed now. So we can close the hatch. Which is, it's not the most secure hatch in the world, but you know, it'll do. Set this up. Start a new run. Perfect. Now we just leave this thing be.
So I woke up, I checked my phone, and I saw this. And so I just kind of scrolled Fetty for a while, just like Mastodon, social media, and eventually got to this post about how peaceful states need nuclear weapons. And it was a few hours before I had the courage to go up and check if my stupid little plutonium experiment had actually worked. Looks like the detector might have actually worked. Maybe. So on my last night in Montreal, I ended up in a hotel room looking at this graph. These 4 graphs, I guess it's 4 graphs. But you can see here the peaks corresponding with the formation of Neptunium-239, which is Uranium-239's decay product, and then we can also see Plutonium-239 being formed. It's a much weaker signal, but it is there, and I did some more stuff. They're Lorentzian peaks. The peaks look like they should, so, it's not great evidence, but it's all the evidence I could have kind of expected to get, so.
This is it. In my hand is technically weapons-grade plutonium.
It worked. I made weapons-grade plutonium. It's such a crazy thing.